honor to my youth pastor and
Amen.
my Heavenly Father. And can we give them all and our television audience and podcast audience? Well, as we always, I get up, we're continuing on with our final designation. And this will be leading to our conclusion of the final designation. Since it's leading to the conclusion, it is going to be called the final sleep. Now, since we have covered death and know not to fear it, as it reads in 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, starting at the 13th verse. Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind, who have no hope. But you know what the good news is. We have hope because Jesus bought us by dying on the cross. Therefore, we have a home in Jesus. We have hope in Jesus. And we have rest and peace in Jesus. Because of Jesus, we have a home in heaven, resting from our labors. Many of us walk this road alone, this road we call life. But with Jesus, the lover of our souls, we are never alone.
Amen.
Without Jesus, we are missing a piece to our spirits. With Jesus, we are whole when we know Him. We don't have to walk alone any longer, because He is walking with us every step of the way until the end. One day when we leave this earth, we will sleep our final sleep. But the good news is, even when we leave our bodies, He's still there, guiding us to our final home in heaven.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
And as it reads in 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, and the 14th verse, for since we believe that Jesus died and rose again, we also believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in Him. Now the part that reads, those who have fallen asleep in Him, this means falling asleep in Jesus. It also means Christian death. You remember when Stephen was stoned to death for preaching the gospel of Christ? In the book of Acts, the 7th chapter, starting at the 59th verse, Stephen cried out to the Lord, saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Falling on his knees, he cried out in a loud voice, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. Though Stephen's story is sad, he knew he was going to heaven. He knew death was not the end. See, when you know Jesus and the day of death comes, you fall asleep in Jesus. Therefore, as Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. For if it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare, you will receive blessings and honor. So that's the good news about Jesus. He went ahead of us to prepare a home for us by dying on the cross. And also with Jesus we have peace, because He will leave peace with us, give us hope and life. Isn't that good news?
Amen.
And in the book of Revelations, the 14th chapter, starting at the 13th verse, it reads, Blessed are the dead, those who die in the Lord, from this moment on. Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their labors, for their deeds will follow them. Remember, when we leave our tired bodies, we get a new body in heaven. That means no sickness, no disease, no worry, no pain, and no sorrow.
Praise the Lord.
We will have a new and improved body that are like no other, because we will be in the complete likeness of God, because we will be living with him in heaven. One pastor who has gone on to be with the Lord said, "We will look like we might be 20 or 30 years old, because when Jesus left this world, he was 33 years old." See, when we go to heaven one day, we get to see our loved ones we have lost. You remember when Jesus raised the boy to life again and presented the boy to his mother?
Amen.
This is what Jesus will do for us when we go to heaven one day. He will reunite us with our loved ones. Now the next question remains, will we recognize each other in heaven? Jesus said we will be like the angels, where there is no marrying or giving in marriage. So let's jump over to Matthew's 17. This will give you a glimpse to show us that we will recognize each other. In this particular chapter, this is when Jesus was transfigured before them. So I think it's Peter and James. He was transfigured before them. His face shined like the sun, and his clothes became white as snow. And suddenly, Moses and Elijah appeared, talking to Jesus. Peter and James knew immediately who they were, even though they had been dead for centuries. God revealed it to them. So this lets us know that yes, we will recognize each other when we go to heaven. Excuse me. When we die, our relationship with Christ deepens because we will dwell in heaven, seeing him face to face. Thus deepens our love for him. Since we know about Christ and life after death, the veil no longer covers our hearts and minds, because whoever turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. And if you would please turn to 2 Corinthians, starting at the 3rd chapter and 18th verse, which I myself have to find. It reads, "And we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory are being transformed into his likeness with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." And jumping down to the 4th chapter, starting at the 3rd verse, it reads, "And even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers, so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ is Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts, to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. But we have this treasure in jars of clay, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may be revealed in our mortal body. So then death is at work in us, but life is at work in you." And moving to the 16th verse, it reads, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Isn't that beautiful?
Amen.
Paul is letting us know to have faith not in what is seen,
Amen.
but what is unseen. Because, the supernatural world is unseen to human eyes.
That's right.
But when you leave this world, you can see everything.
Amen.
That's why it's important to accept Christ so you don't go to hell. Because you can't get out. There ain't no escaping.
Amen.
So, moving on, the next question is, will we have a body when we go to heaven? And how will we look when we get there? Well, all this is summed up in, 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, starting at the 40th verse. Let me see. Get all my stuff here. Okay. Here we go. Move this down so I can see it. All right. It reads, "There are also heavenly bodies, and there are earthly bodies. But the splendor of the heavenly bodies is one kind, and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another." And moving to the 44th verse, it reads, this will answer our other question, "If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam, a life-giving spirit. The spiritual did not come first, but the natural, and after that, the spiritual. The first man was of the dust of the earth, the second man from heaven. As was the earthly man, so are those who are of the earth. And as is the man from heaven, so also are those who are of heaven. And just as we have borne the likeness of the earthly man, so shall we bear the likeness of the man from heaven. I declare to you, brothers and sisters, that life and blood cannot enter the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable." So, we will have bodies when we go to heaven. They will just be heavenly bodies, far better than our earthly bodies.
Amen.
And as it reads in the Bible, and just as we have borne the likeness of the earthly man, so shall we bear the likeness of the man from heaven. This means the way we look here is the way we will look in heaven. We will look the same. Now moving on to the next part. It's still in the same chapter. It's the verse 51. We'll be talking about the resurrection now of our earthly bodies. It reads in the 51st verse, "Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory." When the resurrection comes, our earthly bodies will be raised from the dead. As it reads in the same chapter of 1 Corinthians, verse 35, it reads, "But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come?" Now here is the nature of the resurrection body. Apparently the Corinthians did not understand how material earthly bodies, which were subject to sickness, death, and eventual decay, could live eternally, which is understandable. How can our dead bodies be raised and live again? Paul explains in this chapter that God will change the bodies of believers, which is us Christians, to make them immortal. God will change the bodies of the deceased to make them appropriate for their new, imperishable existence. In this section, imperishable means no longer subject to physical decay or aging. Christians' resurrection body will be physically attractive beyond anything imaginable. Paul's contrast between natural and spiritual bodies is a contrast between which is temporary, alive, and that which has an eternal existence with God. Starting from Genesis, the 2nd chapter and 7th verse, Paul explains that God created Adam from the dust and animated him with breath. Christ, however, is the last Adam, and his resurrection gave him a spiritual and therefore imperishable body. By spiritual body, Paul does not mean an immaterial body, but a body animated or a created and empowered body by the Holy Spirit. Isn't that beautiful? We're going to redo our whole entire Bible.
Amen.
Yeah,
Praise the Lord.
that's beautiful. That is why the resurrection will come, because our corruptible human bodies cannot inherit the kingdom, as Paul stated. You remember when Jesus died on the cross and was raised from the dead later, returning to heaven with his new resurrection body? Christ's resurrection, grounded in the truth of eyewitnesses' testimony, changes everything. Since God raised Christ from the dead, this shows Christ was and is the first fruits, or the first of many others who would also be raised from the dead.
Amen.
The word first fruits refers to a first sample of farming crop that indicates the nature and quality of the rest of the crop. Therefore, Christ's resurrection body gives a foretaste of what is to come. Isn't that nice? That's why he has the Bible to give us examples and to show us what is to come. Yeah, beautiful.
Praise the Lord.
The Lord always confirms his word.
Amen.
And as it reads in 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, starting at the 21st verse, for as by a man came death, by a man has come also the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ shall all be made alive. By divine, by divine appointment, Adam represented the whole human race that would follow him, and his sin therefore affected all human beings. Similarly, Christ represented all who would belong to him, and his obedience therefore affected all believers. And for now, I will stop here. But if you would like to accept Jesus Christ in your heart, say, dear Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
I am a sinner.
I'm a sinner.
Forgive me of all my sins.
Forgive me of all my sins.
I believe Jesus Christ
I
died
believe Jesus Christ died
and rose again.
and rose again.
Come live in my heart, Holy Spirit.
Come live in my heart, Holy Spirit.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
And remember that the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit